Hello, in this lecture we will take a look at Chapter 2 of our QuickBooks workbook, where we're going to be preparing a balance sheet using QuickBooks Account. So once again, I'm going to let you read through the non-grayed out gray areas, and that will give you the scenario. We're going to skip down to the gray area where we actually have the activities. So the first activity says to create a standard balance sheet. Now, in order to do this, of course, we are going to be using the same Larry Landscaping file we had open in the past. Therefore, you can open this a few different ways. I saved the data file on the desktop here. Same file we used from the past. It is in this case, the data files. And we could double click on this to open it in that way. That should generate the program and start the program to run the file. We can also just double click on the shortcut to QuickBooks in this fashion. And that may open to the prior workbook that we were on, the prior QuickBooks file that we were using, or it may prompt us with a screen that we can then open from the QuickBooks screen. Okay, my screen opened up to this window here. This shows us some of the companies we've been using prior. It also has the create new company, open or restore, or open a sample file. Again, I tend to like to use the drop down menu over here because even if a company is open, or if I'm in a different type of window within QuickBooks, we'll always have this drop down, and then I usually generally select the open or restore. In this case, we're going to open a file. We're not going to restore the file, and we're going to go next because we already restored it. If you need to restore it, you can take a look at the instructions to do so. But if you already worked Chapter 1, you probably have it restored somewhere, so we're just going to open it. Mine happens to be on the desktop, and I'm going to scroll down to my QuickBooks folder. I put it into the data files, and I'm going to double click the Larry Landscaping, the green icon, and that should open it up. Now that we are up and running, we have the sample Larry Landscaping and Garden Supply. We're in 2014, and we can verify that up there. If you do not have the open window over here, I do suggest using the open window. You can view that by going to the View tab, drop down at the top, and having this window checked off on the open window. Only open window we have open at this time being the Home tab. So let's go back to the instructions and see what we have. These are a little larger. So number 2 says click from the icon bar, click the company financial on the left. If it is not already selected, click the standard tab at the top of the report center window. In the upper right hand corner of the report center window, click the list icon. Place your mouse over the 3 icons shown in the list, scroll down, and then double click the balance sheet under the heading balance sheet and net worth. Click the customer report button. On the button bar, click the header footer tab, uncheck date prepared, time prepared, report basis, and then click OK. Alright, let's see if we can remember to do all that. We're going to go to the reports. So reports, we're going to go over here into the report center. So that'll open up the report center. If it's not full screen such as this, you can check this box here to get the full screen. The default is generally going to be the company and financial tab on the left hand side and the standard tab on the top, rather than one of these other tabs. So if you're in an unusual situation, probably you're on some other tab here and you need to go back to the standard tab. And then notice that they want us to get to the list format. We're currently in this kind of icon where we can see the type of form that is here. If we go to these 3 bars up in the upper right hand side, we can make it a list format, which is a little bit more condensed that we can then see. Note that the income statement is on top. QuickBooks calls the income statement the profit and loss for some reason, and therefore we're going to scroll down and look at the next main financial report, which should be the balance sheet. So if you scroll down a bit, you see income and expenses, keep going. And then we finally see balance sheet and net worth. So you got to scroll down a bit to find that, and we want the balance sheet standard, I believe. Let's double check that. Yeah, we want the balance sheet standard. So I'm going to go ahead and run the balance sheet standard. Now, all the time they're going to try to help us to customize the layout of this report, meaning, and one of the things they want us to do is get rid of the time, the date, and the basis, being this is the accrual basis. The way that we do that is we're going to go to Customize Report up on the upper left hand side. I'm going to drag this bar over here so that we can then see it, and we can have display options, filter, header, and fonts options here. I'm going to go to the header and footer option, and they wanted us to deselect the date prepared, time, and report basis, like so. When I hit OK, those three things should then go away. And then hit OK. They tell us to hit OK. Okay, so I hit OK, and they go away. All right, and now they have disappeared as shown in the figure. Scroll down the balance sheet. Notice that this report shows the balance in each account with subtotals for assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. Unlike the standard accounting practice, QuickBooks account displays net income for the year to date as part of the owner's equity. So what they're saying, that the balance sheet reports mean that total assets equal total liabilities and equity. So here's the total liabilities, here's the equity, that plus that equals this. They are also telling us that within the equity account, they are breaking out net income to show us what net income is for that time period, which standard accounting would have that included in the retained earnings. So they're giving us that breakout and showing us the net income portion for the time period being displayed. And note that what is the time period being displayed? In this case, it's the fiscal year. Most of the time when we look at the balance sheet, it's as of a point in time. So we don't know the time period because it's a point in time. And this would indicate, in order to have that number correct, we would need to know, is it for a month? Is it for a year? That number, what should it tie out to? The income statement, which QuickBooks calls the profit and loss. Number 4, do not close the window. All right, so we're going to keep that open. You're going to pause and read through the non-gray areas, and we're going to skip to the gray area, which has another objective of to create a comparative balance sheet. So now we're going to make a comparative balance sheet, and it says to change the column text box from the total only to month. Your window should look like figure 2.2. So I'm going to go back to the window. Instead of having the total only as of the end of this time period, we're going to have the scroll down here, and we want to go to the month. So what that does then is it breaks us out as of a point in time, as of the 3 months that are covered in this report, being October, November, and December. So now we have the balance sheet for those 3 points in time, and it ties out to this report here. We could check a couple numbers and just say, yeah, that looks like the same numbers. So that is good. And then number 2 says, scroll down and across this sheet. Note that this report is similar to the standard report, except that the columns compare the amounts by month for the 3-month period as compared to just one date. And then it says we're going to close that report. Before I close it, I'm going to save it just in case we need to turn this report in. So anytime I make a report, I'm just going to basically save that in case it is part of the homework and practice the saving process. The best way, the optimal way for me, is to save it to an Excel sheet. So I'm going to create a new worksheet like so, and a new window that should then pop up. I'm going to create a new worksheet, and I'm going to put it in a new workbook. Since this is a new workbook, the next one I create, I'll put in the existing workbook that I'm going to create this time. And I'm going to say export, and it should open Excel automatically. All right, so there we have it. I'm going to make it large over here. We have the tab down here. I'm going to click over on this page layout so that I can then see the header. So there's the header. Then I'm going to click back to the normal view. Note that it put these split things in there. I'm going to go to the view tab, and I'm going to unsplit that. Then I'm going to go back to this tab so that I can see the title. Double click on the sheet down here and rename it to the balance sheet. And you could put the date 12/15, maybe .15, and there we have that. Then I'm going to save this to our file because this may need to be uploaded to Moodle. So I'm going to go to Save As. I'm going to go to my computer, and then we're going to browse. I'm going to save it onto the desktop. And note that this is basically half the battle to save these reports. We want to save it in a way that we could find it and upload it. So I'm going to put it into the QuickBooks file. I'm going to put it into week 1. I'm going to make a new file here because I'm going to call this Chapter 2. I'm going to make a new file, Chapter 2, and we'll open this up, and then I'll name it here Chapter 2 Reports, or something like that, and we will then save that there. We could close it, we could keep it open. I'm going to go ahead and close it, and if you don't have Excel or that doesn't work, that export doesn't work, you could also go to File, you can save it as a PDF, Or if that doesn't work in some other reports, you can print it to a PDF, save it as a PDF, and I'm going to print report, and then change the printer to the PDF. So if we did that, we'd go to print it, and then we could find it. I'm going to go, it's in the desktop, and we're going down to our QuickBooks file. We're going into week 1, we're going into chapter 2, and this is the balance sheet 12.15. And of course, if we wanted to double check if that happened, if we saved it like it should be saved, it's going to be in the QuickBooks, it's going to be in the week 1, it's going to be in chapter 2, and there's our 2 items there, the Excel and the Adobe. I do prefer the Excel because you can then put it new reports on a same workbook with new worksheets, which will be easier to upload. All right, let's see what else we have here. We're going to move down to page 30, where you're going to pause and read the non-grade areas. We're going to skip to the gray area, which has an objective of to create a summary balance sheet report. Number 1, the report center. Click the company and financial if it is not already selected, and then double-click the balance summary. This is not clicking the reports menu item, it's clicking the company financial from the report center. Remove the date prepared, time prepared, and report pages as you did in the previous balance sheet. So now we're going to go back here, going to go to the reports up here. We are going to go to the company and financial again, and then I'm going to scroll down to the balance sheet area. We're in the profit and loss, 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 and then there's the balance sheet and net worth down here. We see the standard. At this time, we want to move down to the balance sheet summaries. We're looking for the summary report in this case. Going to go ahead and run that one. There we have the summary report. Scroll down the summary balance sheet if necessary. Notice that it is a brief version of the standard balance sheet. It shows amounts for each account type, such as other accounts but not for individual accounts within each account type. So you'll note that if we have sub-accounts, then these accounts are going to group the accounts more tightly so that we can get a quicker idea of where we stand without as much detail. So we still have assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity, equity here, giving us the balance here. But we don't have as much detail within these accounts. And note that when we create traditionally from the trial balance to the financial statement, how many groupings we're going to make on the financial statement from basically the trial balance is up to how we want to format the financial statements. So this is a more condensed format. If we were going to give it to someone who just wants a quick overview, this would be great. If we're giving it to someone who wants to make a more detailed analysis, then we would want more information to it. All right. I'm going to scroll down. You can skip well, you're going to pause and read through here, and then I'm going to scroll down to the next gray area on page 31, which says to use the quick zoom. So place the cursor over the account receivable balance of 35,810.02, a cursor shape like a magnifying glass and containing a Z appears. This cursor indicates that the quick zoom report is available for this amount. All right, so we're going to go to the 35,810 and we're going to quick zoom. So it's a great feature we have here. And if we want to know more about that accounts receivable, what is the accounts receivable, by the way? It represents the money that is owed to the company. If we want to know more about it, how did that number come about, we can double click on it using the quick zoom, and we get a transaction report by account. In this case, the accounts receivable account. So notice what this is similar to in our financial terms, and that is the general ledger or the T account in the accounts receivable, meaning it shows the balance and it shows the activity by date here. So here's the balance, here's the activity. We had an invoice increasing the balance, invoice increasing the balance, invoice increasing the balance, same. Then a payment decreasing the balance, then an invoice. That's what the accounts receivable account will look like, because that's what goes into accounts receivable. We bill someone, then we receive the payment from someone, and that should be what the activity looks like. You can also take a look at the date, the number, the name of the individual, the class, and the splits here. Remove the date prepared, time prepared, and report basis items as you did previously. The resultant transaction by account report now appears with all change accounts receivable occurred in October 1st. So then we can go over here. I'm going to go to the customize report once again, and we always go to the header and footer. They like to remove the company, I'm sorry, not the name, the date prepared, the time prepared, and the report basis. So we're going to remove those. Once again, these should disappear there, like so. So then it says we're going to double click the number 6503 to view this payment. So we can go over here. We're looking for 6503, this payment. We can quick zoom on that again. How did that get there? We can double click, and we then go to the customer payment here. So we take a look at the customer payment. Number 4 then says on page 32 that we want to double click the invoice 65 in the number column to expand one of the actual invoices that increases the accounts receivable. So I'm going to close this window, and we're going to go to the invoice, in this case being the invoice 65. So here's the number, here's 65. So I'm going to double click on that, opening the invoice in this case. So we've got the tree trimming and whatnot of the activities. Number 5, close the invoice window, the transaction by account report, which was hidden while you expand the 65 report. All right, so here is the invoice. I'm going to go ahead and print this just in case we need it once again. So we have the invoice here, invoice being the activity that we have, the quantity, the rate, the amount. Note that we can't export this to Excel. There's no export to Excel item. So if we were to print this, we could try save. There is a save as item here. We could also go to the print item and try to print it as a PDF file. So we can go here and save it as a PDF file and try that option. And it's going right where we want it to go. It should be after the first time, so it's going right in that chapter 2. And so I could just type in invoice, and we probably want to give it some other detail, maybe the number 65, like so. Now, once again, if that's not an option for you too, the last option that you could do in order to save this is to screenshot. So if we were to go here, we can go to insert a screenshot of the invoice, like so. So that is a last resort option. Again, I don't prefer this option, but you could do this option. I'm going to save it if there's no other option available to you when saving this information. You're going to put that in the week 1, chapter 2, put it into docs. And I'm going to close that. So then I'm going to close this invoice. If you can't see the end of it over there, then we got the icon up here. Go ahead and close that. Then before I close this, I'm just going to report this. Might as well export the export to the Excel button. I'm going to create a new worksheet, and it's going to go into an existing workbook. So we need to change this item down here. Now it's already going somewhere. It's going to go to the last time we put it to an existing workbook. If I click the browse button, it looks like it's right place, but it's actually going to the chapter 1, and we want to go to chapter 2. So if we could hit the drop down and find it, or we can go to the desktop over here. We can go to QuickBooks. We can go to week 1. We're on chapter 2. And then if I open chapter 2 and export, then it should open up Excel and create a new tab with this in it. So there we have it. I'm going to make this large. I'm going to then see it's sheet 1. I'm going to go to the page layout so I can see the header. I'm going to select OK when that pops up. There's the header. I'm going to go back, and I can see that it did the split thing again, which it does every time we export. And I'm going to go to the View tab at the top in the Windows group and click this split button so it gets rid of that split and puts this back to a normal format. Then I'm going to go back to the page layout tab, and I'm going to double click on the tab so that we can rename it to the transaction. I'm going to abbreviate by account AR or something like that. Go back to the normal tab here, and then we might want to put it at the end. So I'm going to drag. So I'm just going to drag it by putting my cursor on there and dragging it to the end, and then we can just save that and close that. Once again, if you don't have that option, you could go to the File Save As, or you can go to the print option. If I saved it as a PDF file, then it's going to week 1, chapter 2, and then you probably don't want to get rid of the PDF here. We can call it once again transaction by account AR 1215, something like that, and that should save it to our area here. So we're in this folder, we're in week 1, we're in chapter 2, there's the items that we have. Okay, close the create invoice window. The transaction by account report, which was hidden, invoice appears. Number 6, double click anywhere on the row containing the payment reference 6503. All right, payment reference 6503. We were in there before, so I'm going to double click on that one. That will quick zoom to the payment window. A receive payment window appears. Note that this payment was payment on account and was applied to invoice 49. Yes, it was. So here's the invoice that it was applied to. Here's the amount of the payment. And close the report payment window. Close the transaction by account window. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and print this while it's open. So in order to do that, we could go to File once again. And notice that the Save As is not there in this case. So we then could go to the Print button, and we could print it as a PDF. So I'm going to go to my PDF printer. And if it doesn't pop up, it might be behind the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. Then it pops up. It's going where we want it to go right now. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, customer payment. And for Jasmine, I'll say, okay. And then we could, if you do not have that option, once again, you could use a Word document to clip, and that is an option available for something like this, which you may not have the printing capability. So if we open this up and we go to the insert and we go to screenshot, we could then take a clipping of the screen, and that could work as well. I'm going to save that and close this. So then I'm going to close this and go back to the instructions here. Alright, so then you're going to go ahead and pause and read through this. We're going to skip back to the activity in the gray area. Next objective is to modify the summary balance sheet report. So then we're going to click the customize report button and the report bar, and then we're going to go to the summary balance sheet should still be open, and then number 2, display, click display tab. If not already active, then leave the from date at 10/1 and then change the to date to 11/30. Change the display columns by the setting to month. Check the percent of column checkbox as shown in figure 2. So here's the figure that we are going to be on. We are now on the summary balance sheet. Hopefully that's the one we are adjusting here. So we're going to go back to the customize report. We got these tabs up top, and then we are going to click the customize report, click the display tab if it's not already active. So we're going to go to the display tab here. It's already active, so that is good. And then leave the from date as 10/1 and then change the to date to 11/30. So 10/1 is here. I'm going to type 11/30. Fastest way to do this, 11/30/14, and then I hit tab. Don't need to hit the dashes or anything. That's a little bit quicker to input in that way. And then change the columns to setting by month. So we're going to change the columns here to total to by month. So that's going to show us a total of each month in this case. And then we want a percent of column checkbox. Alright, so we got the percent of column, which is over here. Percent of column checkbox. And then click the fonts and number tab shown in figure 2.8. So then we're going to go to the fonts and numbers tab. That's going to be over here, fonts and numbers. And number 4 says click the divide by 1000 and without cents checkboxes under the show all numbers section. So we want to divide by 1000 and we want to get rid of the pennies without cents. This report has no cents. Alright, and then all number sections. So then we're going to go down to page 34 and we have figure 29, which shows those items there we just checked off. Number 5 says click the header footer tab. Number 6 says click the inside report title edit box. Change the name of the report from summary balance sheet to comparative balance sheet. So we're going to change it to comparative balance sheet. So I'm going to go to the header and footer tab, summary balance sheet to comparative balance sheet. Back to the book, comparative balance sheet, and there we have that. They also want to remove date prepared, time prepared, and report basis, it looks like, because they always do that. So date prepared, time, and report basis have been removed. Then we're going to scroll down. It says change the alignment by clicking the down arrow to the page layout section and clicking left. So we have the page layout, and we want to make it the left. So we're going to left align it in that way. Okay, this changes the alignment of the title text that it did. Alright, so the number 8 on page 35 then says click OK to close the modified report windows, and hopefully it'll look like this after we do that. So I'm going to click OK, and then it kind of looks like this. We're going to want to compare that to the book and say, does that look like what it's supposed to do? And apparently it does. Mine's totally correct. So we got that. See what else we have here. And then we're gonna skip the or you'll read through this area. I'm gonna skip to the next gray area on page 36, which says to memorize the comparative balance sheet just prepared. So number 1, activate the report center window. If you close it, open it again. Click the memorize tab at the top of the report center and then click edit memorize report. So we're going to go back up here. The report center is open over here. We can click there or we can click up here. Now, we're not going to go on the standard tab this time, which is usually where we would go. We're going to go to the memorize reports button up here. So these are going to be our custom reports that we will then memorize. Memorize report and then click the edit lists. So that's this little pencil right here. So we're going to click the edit memorize list there. These are our memorized reports. Click the Memorize Report button at the bottom of the Memorize Report list window and then click New Group. So we're going to go over here. We're going to have this button at the bottom. So it's a drop up button in this case. We're going to take that and we're going to go to New Group. New Group. And that group then will be type your name in the new group and then click OK. So we're going to put our name here. So you put your name, not my name. And I'll put my name and not your name. And then we're going to say OK. And notice it groups it in terms of alphabetical order. So mine's in the B area. So yours may be somewhere other than the B area. And then we're going to click on number 5. Says go to the summary balance sheet still open a QuickBooks account by clicking its name from the open list window. And then number 6 says click memorize. So now we're going to go back to the report that we were working on, which is the summary balance sheet that should still be open in the open window over here. It's not. So remember, it's this one. This one is the one we are looking at. And we're going to go ahead and memorize that report. So then click Memorize button and change the Save Memorize Report group checkbox and select the name of the dropdown. Click OK, memorize the report acting the default report title. Click Memorize Report List. View the Memorize Report List window, which would look similar to the one shown below. Alright, so we're going to go here and we're going to go up. Now that we have this report open, we know where we want to put it into our name. We're going to go to the Memorize tab up top to memorize this report. I'm going to drag this window over here so that we can then see it. I'm going to keep the default name, save in a Memorize Report group. We want that. I'm going to check that off. I'm going to select the drop down. I'm going to find where we want it, my name, in this case, your name in your case. Then we'll say OK in this case. Takes a little camera shot of it. You'll hear a little camera clicking, and then we should have that. You can read through this. I'm going to skip down to the next gray area, where it says to print the comparative balance sheet report. Now I'm going to show you the print area. We of course will then save it to an Excel sheet and or PDF file. So we're going to click the print tab on the report button bar. 2, click the preview in the report dialog box to preview the report. 3, click the zoom in button to see what the report will look like when printed. So we can then go here, we can go to the print, we could go to the print button up here, print report, and then we have this preview tab, which for people that have used older versions of Microsoft, kind of was the way Microsoft used to be. So then we have this report here, and we can zoom in and see what this report would then look like. What you want to be careful of when you make these reports is that if one of the columns, of course, is on another page, then that's a problem. That's not going to be formatted well. So you want to fix that if that is the case by adjusting the format of the report. So then click print and close window. So we're not actually going to print it. I'm going to go ahead and close the window. What we will do though, however, is we will save it to an Excel sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Excel, and I'm going to go to create new worksheet, but we are going to put it to the same workbook. So we're going to change that to the existing workbook, which will allow us to see the browse window. Now that we have saved it in there before, it's going to the right one, which is in week 2 in this drop down. This is the one we want. So I'm going to double click on that. It's already going there. I'm going to export that, should open Excel, should create a new tab with this information in that tab. So here's Excel, here's the new tab. I'm going to make this large. There's the information in that tab. I'm going to go ahead and select the page layout area. I'm going to go OK with that pop-up. Going to then come back over here to the normal view. I see the split screens, which I want to get rid of. I'm going to go to the View tab at the top in order to do so. In the Windows group, we're going to go to the Split button, unsplitting that screen. Then I want to rename the tab, so I'm going to go back over to this view so I can see the header, double click on it, and I'm going to abbreviate it, Comparative Balance Sheet. And I'll just leave it like that. I'm going to go back to the normal view. We may want to put this at the end by clicking on the tab and dragging it to the end. So there we have that. We can then close this up, save it, make sure we save it, and then if you do not have that option, you could file and save as a PDF file, and it's going right where we want to go once again. And we would change the name. I'm going to keep the PDF there just to make sure it doesn't change the file type. And this one I can type out the whole name. Comparative Balance Sheet, because we have plenty of room. The date is usually a good idea to put in to a report such as this. And save it. I should have put October and November, but we'll save it there. All right. Then you're going to read through this area. We're going to skip to the next, and that is the end of chapter 2.